Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I thought today we would have a look at some of the levels which are going into the Pacific campaign. We'll split it up into two videos, so in this one we'll have a look at the American one, and then in the other one we'll have a look at the Japanese side. Obviously there's a lot of different stuff when it comes to the Japanese side, since they are the newer nation when it comes to Enlisted. America is very heavily involved in the invasion of Normandy, and also elements in Tunisia, so a lot of weapons are very similar from those areas, but a lot of the weapons for Japan are completely unique, and hopefully they get their own models as well. I'm sure they will going forward. The level 1 for America starts off with the M1903 Springfield, the Springfield M193A1 USMC, and also the M13 MGMC. So what we're basically seeing here, also another Springfield. So we've basically got 3 sets of Springfields and an M13. What we can also glean from these levels is also what's going to be there for general stuff. So we probably have an infantry unit, we have obviously the tank unit at level 1, and also the sniper unit, so pretty similar to a lot of other campaigns, how it's set up. I don't think it's going to be much different to others. So out of these, obviously Springfields are quite weak guns in the grand scheme of things. They have quite a long reload, and also the bolt action animation is quite long as well. They don't have the greatest hit power, but you know, they're okay to start with. Compared to the competition, and you'll be able to move on from them pretty quickly since there's quite a lot of semi-autos in this campaign, just like a lot of other stuff. The M13 MGMC might be broken. It's going to be interesting to see how it all works. So the M13 is basically a half-track which has a dual-mounted 50 cals on it, and as you know, 50 cals are very good against infantry. So if these things, if there's any like altitude in the, well, not altitude, but higher areas in the game, and this thing has enough gun depression to fire down, this thing is just going to annihilate pretty much everything when it comes to infantry. It's going to be hard to deal with it. Planes won't be, I don't think, as strong in this campaign, so you won't have to worry too much about AA duties, and these will just be used to take out infantry. Another thing to also note is because they're 50 cals, not a lot of actual machines in the Japanese side have really any armor to them. So if they give these 50 cals AP, they should be able to go through pretty much anything. So this actually might be a really broken vehicle to start with. Maybe they'll rebalance it, we'll have to see. But it's going to be really good anti-infantry, and also surprisingly anti-armor because of its penetration on its guns. But if they model it like other stuff in Enlisted, maybe it won't. Maybe they'll just give it slightly less penning rounds, who knows. But it has the potential of being very, very overpowered, this thing. So the one after this, so level 2, unlocks the M50 Rising, which is obviously, you know, a pretty decent assault SMG. This will get you Assaulter 1, so it looks like Assaulter 1's going to be level 2. Then also you have the Enfield P14. Now, the Enfield P14, I'm pretty sure, is going to be attached to engineers. It would be very surprising if it wasn't. If instead it was, you know, attached to something else, you know, it would be a bit odd. But the pattern Enfield 1914 is incredibly similar to the ones that we see in the incredibly similar to what we see in the other campaigns. So, you know, but specifically the campaigns such as the good old Tunisian one. So I'm pretty sure the Enfield might also be in the Invasion of Normandy campaign. I can't remember though. I haven't used it in a long time. But you know, the Enfield is pretty good. Like, it's standard bolt action, quite a large clip on it, which is really nice. So you can, you know, get through a lot of rounds before having to reload. But I'm pretty sure this will be engineers. Hopefully they don't do what they did in Tunisia, put engineers at an extremely high level and just kind of annoy everybody. Then at the next level, level 4, you get access to a completely useless aircraft. So the SOC-1, this actually is a vehicle which was used as kind of a spotter plane or a recon plane on a lot of cruisers and, battleships and the like. So it has 177 in the front, it has a rear gunner 7.7, and can carry two 100-pound bombs. So it's not going to be that useful. It's going to be pretty pointless. But, at least I suppose it exists, and means that planes won't be as overpowered, so I'll be happy with that. The Boys anti-tank rifle makes a return, as it always does. So if you haven't used the Boys, it's in the Invasion of Tunisia campaign, and it is terrible. It's really, really bad. It follows the standard anti-tank rifles of just being terrible. So this one's no different. It's not going to work very well. It'll give you the anti-tank squad at level 5, so at least there's that. But I'm sure explosive packs will be more useful. Then again, the anti-tank rifles might be a little bit better because there's a lot less armor in this one. So maybe they have a bit more use, but at least my general use of them so far in the game has been very negative. The Panzerfaust are not too bad, the PZB's not too bad, but the standard AT rifles have been pretty rough. Then at level 6, you got the M3 submachine gun, the good old grease gun. That's in the Invasion of Normandy campaign in very many different setups. I actually think I would prefer to take the M50 Rising over it than the M3 submachine gun. So I don't know how that's going to work. Maybe it'll be better, but then again, you might just be able to skip it. Then at 7, you unlock the machine gunner squad. So that's going to be the Browning M1918. This one is pretty standard as well. Surprised that they're going straight for the Browning. No Bren this time. Very sad. Love me a Bren. It seems like just going straight to the good old Browning. This squad will be very powerful. The Browning's one of the best machine guns in the game because it basically acts like an assault rifle, and it didn't get nerfed like a lot of the other ones did for some reason when it came to its accuracy at range. Then at 8, you have your mortar squad. So you have the 2-inch mortar, the 51mm infantry one, pretty standard. Mortar teams got nerfed pretty aggressively over the years, or over the last year, for good reason, but they're still useful for clearing out cap points, especially if you're on the offensive. You can clear it out and then move in after getting a spawn beacon down. It can work very, very well. So, having a mortar squad is always quite nice. Not usually the main one that I go for, though. Usually I run assaults and engineers and then machine gunners. Those are my 3 separate things that I do. Then for the first tank after the AA guns, you have the M2A4. So the M2A4 is going to be the first piece of armor that the Americans get in this campaign, really. It has the 37mm gun. 37mm in Enlisted don't really work very well. They don't do a ton of damage, but it does also get access to 30 cals. It gets a 30 cal here, it gets a 30 cal here, and then it also gets a 30 cal on the top. So technically, and also a 30 cal here. So technically this thing, if all of the 30 cals work, will be quite good at dishing out a lot of damage. One of the big differences between the American tanks and the Japanese tanks is actually their machine guns. So the machine guns, like the 30 cals, the Americans have a ton of ammunition in them. They don't overheat that much, and generally they're not too bad. On the Japanese side of things, their machine guns have really, really small clips, very similar to the Italians when it comes to the Tunisia campaign. So this is going to be a lot worse than all of these up here. But the 37 won't do too much. It's not the best gun in the world, but this will be a very mobile vehicle, and generally should be a lot better than its Japanese counterpart. Then at level 10, you get the M1 carbine, pretty standard. It's in a lot of campaigns. First semi-auto you get in the campaign is at level 10, so you'll be able to equip a lot of your guys with it. I generally don't like the carbine as much because you have to kind of spam it to get kills. It's very low damage. But I do really like the iron sight on it. I just don't like it on the M2 carbine. I think on the M2 carbine it's not good, but on the M1 it's quite nice. Then at level 11 you have a little bit of variation. The Browning Auto 5 is coming in. So basically you'll just be able to pump through. Now, In a lot of infantry games, I feel like shotguns are either like OP or underpowered. In Enlisted, I feel like they might be, they started off, they added the drilling in the Berlin campaign in the kind of beta for it, and that was broken as all hell. You know, you had engineers wandering around just shotgunning whole squads. But after its rebalance, it was kind of seen as not too good. I've actually been using some shotguns in the Invasion of Normandy campaign. They're not bad. Like they're not bad. I don't think it's too bad. So also at the same time, it can be a secondary slot as well. So basically, it's this is an assaulters thing, by the way. So that means that the sword also is going to be an assaulters thing. So they're going to get increased speed and run around and everything. But yeah, I don't think the Browning auto is going to be too bad. Do you take it over some of the other things? Do you take over the M50 Rising? I think in some situations you do. Do you take it over the M3? Yeah, I think you do. In as long as the fighting in these maps is close quarters, I think the shotgun will be pretty fun actually, clearing out trenches and so on. So level 12, you get access to probably the first useful aircraft, I would say. So the F-2A3, of course, the F-2A3 being a workhorse of the Pacific during the war. And it was one of those, the Buffalo, which, you know, a lot of pilots went through. It was seen as not as good as, you know, the Zero, and then the Corsairs came in and absolutely bodied them. So it did its part in the war, I think is probably the best way of putting it. But this thing's going to have two 100s, 100-pounders, and then 4 frontal 12s, or 50 cals. So once again, it's not going to take over the game on the ground. Little bomb drop and that's it. Completely fine with that. Have absolutely no issues with that at all. So shouldn't be overpowered really. More of an superiority fighter than anything. Then at level 13 you get the M1 Garand. So my guess is this will unlock maybe Infantry 2 or something like that. M1 Garand's really good. It's the standard semi-auto that, you know, people like using. And, you know, it's available in so many campaigns now. Then at level 14 you get your first Flamethrower squad, M1A1 Flamethrower, so one of the first American flamethrowers that existed. You know, if you've used the flamethrowers in the Normandy campaign or in any of the other campaigns, usually the second flamethrower is pretty good because it has a decent amount of range. The first flamethrower kind of sucks though, but they have buffed it millions of times at this point, so it's definitely a hell of a lot better. The main thing that they improved is the interaction it has with AI. AI can't just shoot you straight through it, so it means that, you know, you can actually have use of it. Then at 15, this is probably going to be Assaulter 2 or Assaulter 3, or just a gun to add to Assaulter 2. You get the Owen. This is, of course, the very weird and wonky gun, the good old Mark 142. So this gun was actually more of a kind of oceanic setup. It's actually an Australian submachine gun that they built, and it was used starting off in the Second World War, and then of course it was even used into 1971. So this thing saw use not just in the Second World War, but all the way up to the Rhodesian Bush War, and also Vietnam and areas like this. The system on it, so it has a 33-round detachable magazine on it. Its rate of fire is about 700 rounds per minute, and the muzzle velocity is about 366. So this thing is more similar to something like the Beretta that you see from the Italians, where it has a really high fire rate and also just can put a lot of stuff down range. The problem with the first Beretta is that it has a really small magazine, where this has a 33-round detachable mag, so it might be a little bit easier. But one of the problems I personally have with guns like this is its iron sight. The iron sight on these things is usually pretty rough. So yeah, I think it won't be too fun. Then you have the SBD3, obviously the Dauntless. The Dauntless can carry some pretty hefty bombs, so this might be a bit of a problem for the vehicles. They might also decide to not give it all of its crazy bombs, but if they do, this is going to be way better than its competition, the D3. So just to give you kind of an idea, so this thing has 250 cals as a frontal armament on it, and also it can carry 1,000-pound bomb and two 100-pound bombs. And you can also technically bring gun pods and mines and things like that. It also has a defensive armament of two 7.62s, which won't be too crazy. But the main thing is if they give it the 1,000 and then two 100-pound bombs, this thing is going to be very similar to the one which is in the Tunisian campaign, which I think might actually be this one, or it might be the SP2C. Whichever one it is, if they give it the 1,000, it's going to be just super annoying. And comparing it to the D3 gets one 250 kilo bomb and then two 60 kilo bombs. So it's just worse in terms of what you want to use it for. So yeah, level 17 brings the grenade launcher stuff. So this will be Infantry 2 probably, and you get the Springfield with the grenade launcher. So you have the trade-off: do you want the semi-auto of the Garand, or do you want the grenade? So it's kind of up and down which one you are interested in. Number 18 gives you the A4 Springfield Sniper. So this is in the Normandy campaign, I believe. It has quite a nice iron sight, but it's a useless sniper squad because it's only got 5 members. And the only time it becomes more useful is if, of course, it has access to the better weapons that the snipers get, stuff like the Sniper MKB and so on. So the P400 comes in at level 19. So this vehicle doesn't have any bombs, but it does actually have quite a nice setup when it comes to its guns. So it has some 50 cals, it has some 7.62s, and it also has a 20mm. And since a lot of the Japanese tanks are going to be quite lightly armored, once again, if the vehicles get good belts on them, they could do a ton of damage. They could be really, really powerful. So that, to me, could be good. But, you're going to have to pick your targets and everything like that. But I think that would be quite nice. What's interesting about the P400 though is obviously it's kind of a precursor to a bunch of other vehicles like the P39 and the P63, and it's kind of seen as like the smaller variant of it. And it has one 20mm Spano 404. It only has like 60 rounds though, which is a bit of a problem. It has two 12.7s with 540 rounds and then four 7.62s with 4,000. So you have like all of these different ones, right? At the end of the day, which is quite nice. I didn't really think that this was a carrier vehicle. I thought it was more of an Air Force vehicle instead of a naval vehicle. But at the end of the day, that could be just me getting it wrong, because I remember it was used by Britain. Britain used it in 1941. They had the Aerocobra Mark I, as they called it. But after Pearl Harbor, the US requisitioned the fighters because they hadn't been shipped to Britain yet, and they were still, waited to be assembled. So they basically took them for themselves. And then in December of 41, 179 of the aircraft went into service with the US AAF under the designation of the P400. Some of them kept their British camouflages and also original numbering, but the majority of the planes served in US territory as training vehicles, but a number took part in combat operations in New Guinea and also North Africa. But I didn't realize that this thing was a carrier-based aircraft. I thought it was a ground vehicle. And a how would you put it? A carrier-based vehicle. Sorry. So the next one is the Browning M19 18A2. If you don't know what that is, it's a very powerful vehicle. At the end of the day, works incredibly well. So that one will be really nice. I think in general, that one will work great, and once again will be attached to Machine Gunner 2. And then at level 21 you got the M1 Bazooka. Once again, very solid vehicle. Very solid weapon. This will be the main AT that most Americans use. I don't know if AT is going to be so useful in this campaign, apart from against the AA guns, because once again, they have the opportunity to be really, really strong. Then you got the Johnson M1941. So this is the rifle version. This is actually in the Tunisian campaign, I believe. I really don't like its iron sight. I think its iron sight looks awful, but everything else about it is okay. It's kind of like the Garand iron sight, but taller. And I don't mind the Garand iron sight, but I have a real issue when it comes to iron sights, where the vast majority of it takes up the screen, and this is one of those problems. It's at level 22, as it says. The magazine's 2 rounds larger than the M1, but the recoil is higher. So it's kind of a bit of a trade-off. Then you got the M3 Stewart. This is obviously an upgrade of the M2. It's going to absolutely annihilate the Keeney. It's not even going to be a competition. It's got a lot of mobility, decent armor, and also once again 30 cals. So a lot of ammo. You shouldn't get access to a 50 though. So only 30 cals and the 37 as well. Didn't really upgrade it in that department, but did upgrade it in its mobility and its armor, so it should be very strong. Then you got the Flamethrower, the M2, so that'll be Flamethrower 2. M2 Flamethrower is incredibly good, really long range, really nice for close quarters, and it seems like the Pacific's probably going to have quite a lot of them, so I think that's going to work pretty well. And then at level 25, you probably have a Salter 3 at this point, which would be the M1A1 Thompson. Now, the Thompsons have a really good rate of fire in Enlisted, but I actually don't really like them too much. I think I wish the clip was a little bit bigger. I did just unlock the drum version of it in Tunisia though, so we'll have to see how that goes. But for me, it's like, oh well, you deal with like 2 or 3 infantry, and then you have to reload again. So yeah, maybe my spray transfer needs to improve. And then you got a really dodgy machine gun. So this is the Johnson M1941 MG. And as you can see, imagine taking the M1941 and being like, you know what, we're not that happy as a semi-auto, let's try and make it into something else. So here's an LMG version of it. So it's got quite a slow rate of fire, so it's probably going to be more like the bar, but it's going to hit like a truck. And that's the main thing. So that's going to be super fun on it. And I don't know if it'll be attached to a Machine Gunner 3 or if it'll just be by itself. Maybe in the future it'll be attached to a Machine Gunner 3, who knows. But this one should be quite nice. And it's also the last level that is going to be available on the launch of the Pacific campaign for the Americans. So you can see a ton of this stuff. There is some unique things in it, stuff like the Johnson, obviously some of the vehicles, some of the lower end vehicles, but a lot of it is the same as what you see in other campaigns. Obviously you got the Owen, which is pretty cool. But it's not a ton of stuff to really write home about. I think the shotgun's going to be interesting to see how it works. The M2 Flamethrower is going to be very fun. The tanks are just going to batter the Japanese ones, so hopefully the Japanese get some good AT equipment. The planes aren't really overpowered, apart from maybe the SPD, which might be, and also the AA. But overall, it's looking quite nice to climb through the American side. I'm looking forward to it. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Nicholas Richardson, Elove Goat, Pyman675, Winter Scientist, Merciless Reaper, Jerry Prevolt, Megadino King, Orange Tail, Teddy, John Ryman, Universe, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Moxie, B. Young, Uncle Bean, Sem Arslan, Derek R., Bareen, Lafouche, and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.